The Cypography Podcast is back. I saw something that I never, ever thought I would see.
There's so much we don't know and still don't know.
I came away without a solution.
We did.
None of us expected it to look like it looked.
Tell us when you want to go out, and from that point you've got an hour.
At the moment, we can't say that it ever happened.
That will be more important than any rig tweak you could possibly do.
I came out of that cinema thinking, how do we ever catch them?
Got the oar above my head, I smashed the oar and flew the rod in the tree, and I was ready to give up, but...
You don't know what you're talking about. In the world of what's possible underwater, we are the tip of the iceberg at the minute.
Don't pigeonhole what you think we're going to do.
It's only going to get better from here. We've already got it.
We have got something really good here. I've enjoyed every second of this. The Cypography Podcast is back. And hopefully that is music to the ears of at least some of you. We've added to the mix and we now have angling journalist Thom Airs, who will be presenting what will become a monthly podcast from us at Cypography.
Under pressure then, Gaz Fareham. How good a caster is Gaz Fareham?
Good. He's good. The range wasn't going to be a problem for him. The wind could have been at times, but pretty much from the word go, from start to finish, Gaz's casting during our time at Hardwick was very good.
I mean, he landed on the lead of the other rod.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if people necessarily appreciate, I don't know, I'll probably have a bit more of a view on it than me, but I reckon it's smaller than this table, the bit you've got to land on, isn't it?
I don't think it is, no. Everyone that we film with is convinced it's smaller. It's not. I mean, I think it's at least that. You've probably got 6 foot at least, sort of looking back, and I think width as well. The thing I think that makes people think that is when you see a lead land on the water surface at say 50 yards, if you put one there and you put one down the side of it, to the human eye, those leads look, let's say they look a foot apart. I'm pretty convinced if you went out there in a boat and had them land right in front of you, there probably I think the further out you go, the closer everything looks. So when people are gauging the distances between rods, I think that's what makes people think the spot is so much smaller than it is. But the main area of focus, I would say, is probably about this table. That's generally what you're working with in terms of where the rigs and bait want to land to get a good shot. But bait falling around it and stuff. The spots are generally a little bit bigger, I think, than most people think. Because obviously I go out and see them from the boat most of the time.
So talk us through the logistics then. Linear Fisheries, you've got 8, 9, maybe 10 day ticket waters.
Yeah.
Did you have a blank canvas? What comes first, finding the spot where the fish are going to be, or finding the spot where the cameras can work properly? Yeah.
So with, we owe Wildboar a bit of a thank you for this. I have thanked him already on the phone, but Dan Wildboar said, obviously we've always been looking for waters that are suitable for underwater filming, more so now than ever. But last year, Dan mentioned, I think to you, that we should try Hardwick in the spring. And he said that there's a period where it just, the clarity just becomes incredible. It's generally around the time we did the shoot, early spring. So that's the first thing. Obviously, you have to find a venue that's clear at the right time. The spot, I mean, I didn't know much about the area, really. I think you probably had more of a gauge.
Those gravel features off the spits in Hardwick are famous. And this goes back to late 90s, probably. Not long after Linear. I think Linear opens in 1990. And then by the end of the decade, you've got some of the biggest names in carp fishing fishing there. Nick, Frank, Dan, and they're all pretty soon work out that these steepling bars in Hardwick are a good spot to get a bite. And I don't think it was what I was expecting. It was like none of us expected it to look like it looked.
No, I mean, obviously the bars are big. It's not like some lakes where that's the spot's there. I guess everyone fishes the same spot. From what I could make out myself, the bars run at say 10, 11 wraps, but they're quite substantial. They go a long way. So you can land on every person who goes in the swim, there's a good chance they're fishing different parts of that bar, I would imagine. Finding the spot was quite easy, or certainly the spot we fished anyway, was quite easy. The problem we had at Hardwick was we couldn't actually see the bottom. So despite it being crystal clear...
From a boat, is this? From above?
Yeah, from the boat. So on a normal lake, we would turn up and someone would say, yeah, crack on, do your thing. It was not the case at Linear. they basically, when we spoke to Blunty, he said, I'll get my bailiffs to watch you effectively for health and safety reasons. So if you want to go out in the boat, you want to do this and that, that's fine, but you need to be watched. This is your window of opportunity. You've got from 3, in fact, he said, tell us when you want to go out, and from that point, you've got an hour. So we mucked around with a leading rod. We tried to get it, as accurate as we could, tried to get everything in place. All we had to do was drop a camera. When it came to putting the camera in, there was a big wind on, and we had an hour. Now, normally, if you can go out, or if I can go out in the boat, because most of the time I do it, the boat bit on my own, I've kind of told myself I'm not going to do that anymore because it is an absolute headache, particularly when there's a wind. You would go out over the spot, you see the spot, you lower the camera down, and then you're just kind of tweaking it. With Hardwick, it was very different. I mean, Rich and Bridger were on the bank, weren't you? I was out in the boat trying to lower down into nothing. And obviously, when you're lowering the camera down, it has to face a certain way. So it goes down. And when I can't see, and the boat's drip, I can say, the camera's down next to the float, but we didn't know if it was facing the opposite side of the lake. It was. And we spent that entire hour, basically, from the first 5 minutes of having it on the floor, we spent the next hour just trying to work out where it was facing. And then sometimes you see what you see and you think, oh no, that's not the spot. There was no gravel, wasn't it? I mean, you probably have a better gauge of what you could see.
So I did the, Elle thinks he's got a bad job. I was in the baking sun with a hoodie over my head and over the laptop, watching like the bottom kind of hove into view, a little bit of gravel, then boom, full of silt to kick up. And then Elle's wanting answers.
And I'll get the ump as well. I'm not the most, I'm like, what can you say? And we don't have walkie-talkies. We've said we should. Yeah. Trying to use a phone, which you normally put in the boat, and then I'm leaning over it so they can't hear what I'm saying. And it's
so obviously the first thing you kind of notice is that it's not remotely clean. It's grey.
Yeah.
Silt everywhere. Kick the bottom up and its viz is gone quite quickly. And you imagine the camera's got a plate on the bottom, so all that kind of that sort of surface area just kicks up a lot. But we got there.
With every time you move it, you lessen your chances of being able to see what you need to see on most lakes. Don't get me wrong, if it's pure gravel, you do what you want with it. But some places, you put it down, as you lift it up, the suction kills the shot for 10 minutes. So then I'm out in the boat waiting for it to clear.
Getting blown downwind. And this was, I think, as close as I've seen us to jacking it. I think Elle at one point came back to the bank, threw the marker rod and was like, we're going home.
So what ended up happening was, we got the camera in position, we could see gravel. And what we worked out was that actually we were supposed to fish it from the end of the point. So the camera was going to go, as we look out off the end of the point, the camera's going to go out to the right hand side of the swim, and we were going to run the cable back to the swim next door, so the cable was out of the way. What we did in the end, once we got the camera in a position where we could see gravel well, knowing we didn't have the time to mess around with it because the bailiff was on our case, you need to get out of the water. We eventually worked out that the camera was facing the opposite way to what we wanted. So we wanted to fish out to the right towards the camera. What we ended up having to do was fish it from the swim that we'd run the cable into because it was facing that way. So we had to change swims. Everything was settled, and I remember I clipped the rod up, and I had to do it from a different swim. But as I took the rod back to the bank, running the float out, it was clipped up to another spot. So we'd got everything, and it was like the last thing to do. So, and just as I was getting back to the bank, it hit the clip and it pulled the float off the spot, which not only meant that I would have to rewrap the rod in it, we had to cast the float to find the camera, because now we didn't know where the camera was. So it was out in the lake, we knew roughly where it was, but I'd lost the float, which I would normally use as a gauge because it was still in the clip. And now we film all this, so it's something I really wanted to do moving forward, is film all the stuff that goes into it, because typically our films would be someone turns up, they get their rods out. Mate, there's so much that goes into it before that. To some people it would be interesting, others it may not, but I think it's something that, is good to show, and this would have been great, but mate, I think I got the oar above my head, I smashed it on, threw the rod in the tree, and I was ready to give up, but we didn't give up. I'm glad we didn't, and eventually we got the rod clipped back up in front of the camera, and we made our film. But
yeah, and all the while though, you had other anglers. Presumably, it's still a functioning data kit,
everywhere, mate.
The busiest data kit in the country.
Yeah, everywhere you look.
How were you received by anglers around you? You're making a bit of disturbance.
They're always No. Whenever I walk around a day ticket lake or anything like that, you always get a really nice reception from people. I find.
Bear in mind, we were out in a boat and they're fishing.
They're buzzing to see them, mate. I think a lot of the time people, they
because it could help their
like
fishing
seeing
eventually.
Yeah, I think it's and I remember years ago I would be like that. If ever there was someone from a magazine or someone from, obviously now it'd be from on YouTube or on the telly, if you see them kind of anglers, you always, because it makes you, I think it makes the water you're at feel a bit more. You think, oh, if they, and I think the people are generally always greet us with, smiling faces. They're interested in what you're doing, and yes, we were out in a boat causing a bit of commotion, but
doesn't happen at Linear, does it?
No, you're not allowed bait boats, for instance. So a proper boat is.
We were really lucky, and I think this is, a little to pick up what I was saying, like the enthusiasm which even I had, and I've seen a lot of films and been at a lot of lakes, to see something done on one of the most famous day ticket lakes ever, in my opinion, on one of the sort of features that I'd only imagined before. I was pretty excited about it, Tom.
And I'll tell you something funny as well, and this kind of highlights, I think, mine and Gaz's relationship throughout the shoot, which at times was a bit, we disagreed a lot. But so we'd had all this ag finding the spot, and the first thing Gaz said, wasn't it, when he walked into the tent, he looked at the spot and went, I don't like that. And I remember thinking, mate, you don't know how hard it was just to get that in position. And looking back, actually, he's got a point. The spot we fished was very rocky. It was big, once you start casting. But to us at the time, it was like, can you see stones? Yes. Okay, great, done. Like, it wasn't like, oh, okay, let's try and find some nicer stones and some smaller stones. We just made do. But obviously Gaz turns up with a fresh head. All he wants to see is the spot. His opinion is based solely on what he sees. And his first reaction was, I don't like that spot. And I remember thinking, oh, fuck. Because you don't want an angler to fish a spot they don't want to fish. That's quite important. Like, generally, I find the spots, I put the cameras in place. The last thing you want is someone to turn up and fish and he thinks, I hate that spot. Because from the word go, they're on a downer. Luckily, we saw fish quite quickly, and
the enthusiasm levels
that soon changed. Yeah.
Was it? Rich talks about the enthusiasm levels that you're a jaded man in the industry. You've seen it all, but this one gripped you. It gripped me as well. Watching all the parts to it. Is it fair to say this was quite pivotal in the journey of Cypography? Did you know before you were doing this Submerge that that's the path that Cypography would go? And did this perhaps hurry that along? Maybe?
Yeah. So. It was on this shoot. Whenever we go on the shoots, we often, particularly me, I like to go off on these tangents. When everyone's together, I'm like, what about this? What about this? And I don't know how we got there, but that was when I sort of asked the question first, wasn't it?
I think it was a general, and you get this from a lot of people, are interested about longevity, the way the industry's going, will we still be doing this, and and your mind wanders across all these things, and I think El just piped up with it, but he'd obviously been on his mind already. So
yeah, at that stage I was very much in a position where I'm thinking we have got to do something different, and there'd been a period where I'd been having ideas, and everyone had been, we'd all been having these conversations about what we could do, but it was generally stemmed around the same kind of thing we were doing. It might be another type of film. There was never this do we just change everything? Do we take a massive step towards change? Most of our conversations were, well, let's add this into the mix or that. And it was on that shoot about midway through, I think. It wasn't the start, it wasn't the end. About midway through that I had, thirst for, well, maybe if we really took this seriously, let's take underwater filming really seriously.
I think that's quite interesting though, Tom, that you've identified that might have been the success of the shoot might have added to that, and I hadn't thought of that. Had it gone badly,
by the time we left, mate,
had it gone badly, would you have been?
It could have been very different. The success of the shoot was absolutely pivotal because I left thinking we have got something really good here. Yeah. I've enjoyed every second of this, even the bad.
There was storms. We were living in slop.
Yeah, and we were smiling.
Yeah.
But it was the perfect storm, metaphorically, because the busiest, the best day ticket water in the country. Gaz, brilliantly on camera. You two, you clashed, but in a good way.
Yes.
And the fish didn't always play ball, but they did for the film. I mean, it just all came together, didn't it?
Yeah,
You must have been buzzing driving home.
Oh, mate, it was. We were tired, weren't we? But
Wet, but
we were, sometimes you leave a shoot, I think, and you just have a feeling, don't you? You just think, that was a good shoot.
Yeah, I think you get to a tipping point, and we achieved that pretty early in that shoot, a tipping point beyond which you think, it's only going to get better from here. We've already got it. The worst case scenario is gone. We've got plenty of, and we'd caught a couple of 30-pounders. At that point, it's like, well, we've got it.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better, and it did.
And I think as well,
Even the end.
It was what we could, for me, a big part of it was like, okay, so we've gone here to make this film that was going to be a typical submerged film. And you have to bear in mind that in the past, we probably spend, 10 days editing that film. That would be kind of what I would allocate to Craig, who does the editing, to do that. Please try and get that done as close to that as possible. But after that shoot, and obviously with this idea of, well, what if we took this really seriously? It was like, what could we do with this? Because it's all well and good having the footage. You go and make a film. There's many layers to a film that you can add before, after, during. You can keep layering it, you keep adding to it. Every time you do that, it makes it better. Every time you watch it again, you make it better. We had always been in a position where we were putting out so much content so often that you can't add those layers all the time because you run out of time. As simple as that. You've got X amount of projects you're working on at once. You've got a deadline every single week. Those layers, they don't get added in because they can't. But that's when you start to think, okay, well, this could be a really good submerged film, as we've always done them. But what could it be if we really tried to take it to the next level? And that's what we have done. And that's been, over the last 2 weeks, or however long it's been, I've had so many messages from people that are very similar to what we used to get when we first started Cypography. This is so different. I love the camera work here. I love what you've done with the edit. I love what, you've taken things up a level here. Now, we haven't received that, or I personally haven't received messages like that for a number of years because our content blurred into the, and I think that's I really hoped that would happen, and it has happened, and I'm delighted about that because I wanted people to notice how much effort we have put into this, because that was a big part of it. Okay, we're going to focus on underwater, but part of our promise with that is we will up our game. We will use everything we've got to give you the best films that we can, which we just couldn't really do before. So to get those messages from people, it has made me very happy. Just a few people that I know well, and then obviously the wider public who've said it. And that's not a typical message to receive. People to actually notice the change in what they're watching. So I'm really glad about that. And that's ultimately what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to make really good films and just up the production level at the same time.
And this linear film was filmed back in March. Mm-hmm. Fast forward less than 6 months. I popped down, I happened to be at Elson's or at Stanek the same time you were with Jimmy Armstrong, Elson's. The investment in kit, mm-hmm. You've got completely different underwater kit since the Gaz film, or you've added to it?
Yeah, we've added to it. We actually added to it, and it caused us an absolute fucking nightmare. To be quite honest with you, I wish I'd never done it, but I'm about to go back out to Europe and get it fixed. Not fixed, it works, but have it tweaked again.
But you've thrown resources
at everything, mate.
Since that Gaz film. If people were impressed by the film with Gaz, then wait till they see the rest, effectively.
And I think that's another thing I'd like to say. And I know this was something you were really the content style. When you say to people, we're going to do underwater, we're only going to do underwater, you had a fear that it would become boring or it would become the same. And I understand.
It has to remain a fear as well. Yes. Otherwise, you don't do the right things.
What I think what I'd like to address now to people that are listening who may have thought this or questioned, because I had a lot of messages from people about it getting boring. Now, we are not going to produce. What people do is they think of a typical underwater film, which for a number of years has been what it has been. Largely someone sitting in a tent most of the time. I think our films are quite different to a typical underwater anyway. We've always tried to bring a bit more of the stuff outside the tent into the mix. One, we're not only going to do underwater. It's not that we're never going to do another type of film again. That's not the case. We will do things from time to time that aren't underwater, have no underwater involvement whatsoever. But there'll be things we've done because we've thought, this is worth stepping away from what we think is the best content we can do to make something that's not underwater but can reach that bar. The other thing is we will bring underwater into films where, okay, maybe the main focus isn't underwater, but it's still got that spin to it. It's still got that involvement. You know, I'm about to go away in a couple of weeks. We're going to go around Europe, have a big adventure. Me, Dave, going to go from place to place. I'm going to meet my friends out there. We're going to have the underwater kit in the car. We might have 16 rods out between us. 2 of those spots will have underwater cameras on. So it's not just going to be men sat in a tent looking at changing the length of their rig for the rest. That's not what this is going to be. None of us want to do that. And I think it's important that I say this to people when they try to. I have explained it to everyone that's said it, but don't pigeonhole what you think we're going to do into one tiny little microcosm of what is possible, because we've got so many ideas that we will do. And, you know, we've gone down this road because we got a bit bored of doing the same stuff for 6 years in a row.
It seems you're both re-energised.
I think you can't come into these shoots without a certain level of that, because they are very taxing. Super long, super tiring. You know, like when we were at Stewart, you mentioned the other day, like Elle starts banging around in the tent, like, you know, sort of half an hour before light usually. And like, bless him, he was like, he left me to it.
Yeah.
I was awake. I was aware of him and Dave like moving around, but they left me till the last possible moment on the latest shoot, because obviously during the summer it's early, isn't it? So, you do need energy, and energising, and something new always brings that, Tom. I think, albeit this is stuff we've done for a little while now.
Are you brainstorming between you? You know, we're focusing on underwater. Can we do weed? Can we do silk?
Yeah,
can we do
all the time?
You know,
all the
different
time,
things?
because we're early in this as well. You know, we you know the in the world of what's possible underwater, we are the tip of the iceberg at the minute. Because even your big players like the Corders of this world, they haven't done enough films to really explore all the opportunities, and they are limitless. And also the fascination of underwater, it becomes hypnotic. I don't know if you found that, Tom, watching the films back, but I think you in a world where everything is delivered within 2 or 3 seconds, just being able to sort of get to that rhythm of the underwater world and of the fishing world, and still have stuff like Elliott's character, his relationship with Gaz, like the technical stuff that you will learn. And I learned something from every single shoot that we've done. You know, I've got friends who are understandably cynical and skeptical about underwater shoots, and they're like, well, what do you ever learn? And I can honestly say, mate, every single shoot I've been on, I take something away, and that will continue, even if it's stuff that goes dramatically wrong, which, you know, it does. But what underwater filming does do is highlight that it's going wrong, and in a way that you would never ever understand if you had simply limited your activity to the surface, which we did for such a long time. And I think you've got these layers within filmmaking, and I think there's a certain, you're talking about fulfillment perhaps, you know, once you tick 3 or 4 of the boxes, you get like a warm feeling. I do anyway. And I think the Hardwick one, for me, it was, the venue was incredible. You know, somewhere with like tangible history, important history. I wanted to see what it was like under there. Fascination of actually seeing a place that you can only, you know, you've only read about. I imagine it was going to be glowing yellow pea shingle. Obviously nothing could be, first thing, straight away I've learned something. Then you've got Gaz, who can do it all and is now a really, really experienced guy. You know, like, we've all grown up in this industry. Gaz has been doing it a long time now. Technically very proficient. Willful enough to stand up to Elle, because, you know, sitting next to Elliott in the tent, he's got strong opinions on how he thinks it should be done. And what I loved about the interplay between those two was the fact that quite often they'd end up agreeing in the end. Gaz was not proud in the sense that he would he'd disagree to the point of like, you know, just stubbornness. In the end, if Elle had a point, he'd come round to it in the end. It was all taken in really good grace, I thought.
I think we collectively could kind of, we would get to the I would say something, Gaz would say something, I might be like, well, and then he would go, well, what about this? And then I'd go, oh, okay. And then I'd say, what about that? And then in the end, you're like, oh, okay. So maybe this is the...
And like the bit when he lengthened his rig, like you could see you're itching to say straight away, why have you done that? And given it's kind of just cost us a bite.
Potentially, he might have had enough to do.
Yeah. But when someone's been fishing as long as Gaz has and thinks about it as much as he has, there's always an answer, and it's a sensible answer every time. So I enjoyed that. You know, because when someone hasn't done it, that veneer quickly disappears, and you're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't get that with Gaz.
Going back to the spot itself, was it a known spot? Was it something that people had said, I've caught fish off there before? Has it become more of, have you spoken to Chris Blunt and he said, you know, people are trying to get in that swim now? And how many wraps out was it? I don't think it was mentioned
9?
on there. Or
I think it was 11.
Was it? You got maximum wraps on that spot.
Yeah,
so
right. Like, it's 10. I think we were just outside.
Were we?
I think
or
so.
just inside?
I think like a matter of feet outside. I think what you're supposed
Yeah,
to.
you've got a maximum distance you can fish from there. The spot that, my memory is that we obviously tried to line it up from the known swim on the point of the spit. From that swim you fish right, and it ended up it's sort of between the two swims. But yeah, those spits, the two spits on Hardwick, the spots are really well known, and I believe there's a big plateau out in the middle as well. But these are like legendary spots, really. But I actually got the sense, I don't know about you, but I got the sense that the bar we fished was part of an undulating lake bed as opposed to some kind of serious bit of...
I don't remember.
Didn't feel to me like a precipice. In my head, I thought these were things like Elstow, where they come out.
I think it dropped down into much deeper water this side.
Hardwick is a deep lake.
Yeah, it came into about, I think it was 5,
on
6
our
foot
side.
deeper our side,
Right.
yeah, and probably the other.
how deep was the spot?
11, 12 foot.
That is fairly
So
deep.
the deepest
12.
we've ever filmed
Yeah.
in, I think, isn't
Yeah,
it?
11, 12 foot.
So there were
Yeah.
moments where you, Gaz talks about the orbs or
Yeah.
bits of like sweet corn. So you thought you were pretty sure of it, that there were fish eating above what the camera
they
could
come
see.
off the spot, they swim past the circle. Obviously, well, the way the camera sits, if you come just above it, the further away from it, you can be 6 foot off the bottom,
Yeah.
a rod length away, and we will see you. If you're 1 foot off the bottom, directly in front of the camera, we won't see you. So they eat, they
That
pass
was
over.
one thing that you mentioned, and it's one thing that's sort of fascinating to look back on, is the fact that Hardwick has got, I might have 1,000 carp in there, I don't know, it's certainly got 750 or more. And A, we only saw a certain cast of characters, which does seem to be the way on these things, but B, you didn't see a right lot passing through, and whether that was you couldn't see them at the back, but you imagine them to be travelling in big packs. But that wasn't our experience.
You lucked out on that spot, didn't you? That is a hell of a spot. And it wasn't
Yeah,
necessarily, everything's got to fall together, right? In terms of
And
underwater
it kind
filming.
of didn't, in a way, because the camera wasn't even facing the right way.
And we
Tom,
could have
you know,
blocked it a rod length to the left, and beyond it, probably would the same thing probably
also-
would have happened, I think.
spot was kind of crap. And I believe Gaz when he said I'd be looking, I would be able to tell that was chunky gravel.
It was very chunky. That was
Yeah,
my
yeah,
first,
yeah, yeah.
when
Now,
looking at it.
tons of top anglers fish on those spots, and I don't believe that they would want to fish on chunky gravel. So I think we probably weren't on the honey spot. Do you know
We
what
just
I mean?
basically clipped up. I'm not so sure, because that's your marker. It's the X amount of wraps. We basically got told the wraps. The spot's the spot essentially.
But the one
I
thing,
clipped up, made it out there, and there it was.
and the one hideous thing for me is on the bank when the camera's going in, and it's happened on other lakes since. You see it spinning round, and you catch a glimpse of something amazing, and you never see it
Never
again.
see it again. Yeah.
Because what's the chances? Do you know, I was thinking as we were talking, I wonder if there's a way to fit a fin to the back of it to at least keep it within one plane.
I
rather
can
than
control
spinning.
it because I hold the cable with one side and the rope. I can do it. But when the boat's spinning as well, and no one is in the boat with me, you're
Well,
basically
we need to talk about. We're going to solve this all in one go by getting Dave, who's behind the camera, to swim them out.
Dave.
But he's since after his first effort since refused.
So if people have watched the underwaters, but obviously by definition they can't see the camera that's recording the underwater footage, talk us through it. And again, if people are listening to this rather than watching it, give us some dimensions. Is it a circular base? Is it a bit like an upright lamp that you're sort of putting down? Or?
It's half a Coke bottle with a disc on the front of it that's a bit wider than the body.
That's not what it's
with a
made of, by
plate.
the way.
Yeah,
That's the size.
Like a 2 litre Coke bottle.
with a little plate
Yeah.
underneath it that I have adapted since with a half a paving slab that we found on a shoot where we needed one because it was a slope, and matey gone and got us one, gave it to us.
And that's to anchor it.
Because they don't make these things, mate.
to
That's the
anchor it,
that's the thing. I think maybe the crux of the question is that this is, Els had this made. effectively from someone that we came across.
And it has to be tethered physically. It's not sending signals.
It's cable.
So there is a cable going through your swim.
Yeah.
So Gaz has got a fluorocarbon leader and braid on, and he's pinned down
It's
with
heavy old
precision.
cable.
But then there's this massive cable.
And also,
And
also, like ideally, we get it in a couple of days before, and that cable is really heavy, and I think the sediment would quickly settle on it, etc. It looks all right. Yeah.
There's one thing on the technical side of the camera. I don't get the impression there's a microphone in there. Or is there?
There is on the new
There is now, yeah.
Right.
And you want to hear someone of
Because the
You want to hear
people
a bait boat over it.
Yeah.
Okay, but people have often speculated about the crunching of a carp eating
You will hear
something.
that. You 100% hear that.
Yeah,
I know that you can.
We're bringing that stuff.
Well, I'm
at some
enthused
stage.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that something you specified then, having a
No.
microphone, or you know?
No, I just wanted.
Yeah.
What I've
better
always
camera
wanted is a
than the one we
4K
had, yeah.
camera because our
Yeah.
camera's not 4K. We shoot in 4K.
Yeah.
Our camera is not 4K.
Well, it is now, isn't it? The new
Our latest one is, but that's the one we had all the dramas with.
Yeah.
So, as of about 2 weeks from now, we will have 2 cameras that are both 4K, that both have sound, and then
other functions that are going to make our lives.
and there's stuff in the back end of it that we'll be changing as well, just make it easier. One camera's the camera with the worst image is by far the best camera in terms of usability. The camera with the really good image is a pain in the arse to use. So I'm going to get them blended. So we've got equal quality cameras, as high as quality as we can have, and then the same functionality. So they're both easy to use.
You'll have seen the bit. The great thing for me is obviously I know nothing about the back end of these things, so I just get to sit and watch when it all goes wrong. And like there's the Hardwick. There's a couple of examples at Hardwick where he's where he's like it's not focusing or it won't switch on. Like
It freezes at one
this
point.
This is the thing for me. Like you mentioned earlier, being re-energized. Like I am in a position now where I feel like I did in the first 6 months when we started Cypography. I wake up in the morning, I look at my phone, I go through comments on this post, on that post. I'll come in here straight away. I go in the house. I'm in and out of here all day because I want to be. I go to bed at night. I sit on my phone. Now that's what I did at the very beginning. It almost takes over. I'm not fishing at the moment. All I want to do is work. Because I'm re-energized. That's the right word. Where I had got to in probably a year ago was I didn't ever even consider looking on my phone at comments. I certainly didn't do it when I went to bed at night. I might do it from time to time, but that re-energization that you mentioned you are so right. I haven't felt like this in a very long time, and that is so important with what we're doing, because not only are we doing something very different to what we're used to, it's hard, mate, to do what we're doing. Like it really is. Like I thought, part of me originally thought, this would be a lot easier in a way. We'd be able to, be less time consuming, which will give us all more time to do this, and it'll be a bit easier to do it, but we can put more effort into it at the same time. What's actually happened is when you really, now it's like, okay, because we're trying to do lots of other things, not just the film, and that's what I'm enjoying at the minute, particularly. The filming is good, but the filming is only one part of it. What I'm really enjoying at the moment is all the other things that we're trying to do. Just where everything's become a little bit simpler, we're able to make it a lot more complex outside of the filming, because the filming essentially is put the camera in, go to the shoot, film the stuff, come home, edit it. There's so much more to what we are doing at the moment. Maybe more on the business side of stuff, and we want people to watch these films, but I want people to watch them. I want to know what they think about them, because I feel so invested in them at the minute. Whereas a year ago, I'm not going to lie, I wanted people to watch them. I know I'd like it if someone told me, but I wasn't waking up thinking I need to see if someone said anything, good or bad. And that re-energization, I think everyone has it.
I think you can see it during the Gaz film. I genuinely think there's a progression where your eyes light up, and that's why I asked the question about, was that a pivotal moment? You've mentioned the sound, and I'm excited that we're going to get sound for future videos. You talk about resolution for future videos as well. Are we talking, not to go too technical, but are we getting bigger sensors in these cameras? Is the low light capability coming? Yeah. I mean, can you fish into dusk? Can you fish before sunrise? Could you fish?
We've done it
during the
already
night?
with lights. So we've already caught carp under torchlight in front of the camera. Don't get me wrong, it was a £1 ghostie. But let's take that out the equation.
Cheers, Henry.
Cheers, Henry. It was a carp, and so if we caught a 40-pounder under for torchlight straight away, you've already done your beans on it. You know that bit. We've basically started at be like, what would be the last kind of carp you'd want to catch under a torchlight, and it would be a £1 ghostie. But that's what we've caught. So we have our base to now work from. Filming into dark is something we will do, and we have done. We've tried it more and more since.
Through necessity, actually.
Yeah, sometimes we really need to do a bite today. Yeah. But that'll be something that we do. I can't see us sitting there all night staring at the screen. It'll be, we'll leave the torture place, we'll get some sleep, and then maybe we'll get a bite.
He says that, but he would stay up all night. Just
if they're there, no one's going to go to bed, are they? No one's walking away from that screen. Oh, I'm tired, there's carp feeding, night. That's not going to happen. You're going to stay and watch. But, it's all possible to a degree.
And are all these films, this one was, I think, 4 nights, 5 days at Hardwick with Gaz. Is that the typical length?
Monday to Friday is generally what we've always done. I always think now, we should be doing 2-week shoots on these really, it's a lot of effort. It's true though. In a way you should. If it was like, if there were 15 people in this company, you'd go, right, we're going to do 2 weeks. You can do 3 on. The problem is it's not the case. And if we then go, let's do a 2-week shoot every month, it just doesn't work.
I think in the best possible circumstances, the week shoots are doable, but it has to go right.
And that's something else I think now. Like the more I'm look at things now, and early days of us doing underwater, it was like, okay, if we can catch one, great. Now I'm like, if we catch one, do we need to catch more than one? Obviously it depends what happens during the film. But if it's what is success as time goes on? What is success always just catching a carp, or is it not? Do we need to consider going back again for another few? So I think as time is going on,
and that's never changed, Al. Really,
no.
Has it? Like we were running around doing nights on the bank trying to capture people catching carp before, and felt like we needed carp to legitimise those shoots. Actually, you could make the argument that that they're much more valuable, the underwater shoots, with or without carp, because you're always learning something. Whereas the ones where we're above the surface, sometimes they blanked and we didn't know why.
Carp on screen is a must.
Yeah.
So if you've got carp on screen all the time, we've just done one with Jimmy. We've never had that many fish in front of screen, and if you'd compared fish activity relative to bites, we should have caught 20, right? I'm not going to say how many we caught yet, we'll discuss that later, but we should have caught 20. You get to the stage there where you think, we have to catch one, but you probably don't, because people want to watch it, they're going to enjoy it as much, right? Where you need to catch one is, we have to market this stuff, we have to have stuff to shout about, it's part of what we do. It's like you want to walk away and be able to go, you need to watch this film. Someone holding a carp is always important. In terms of what they're actually digesting with their eyes and their brains as they watch something, you don't always need a carp. That's definitely true. Blanking, sometimes you learn as much blanking as you do by catching 10. But we always want a carp, and one thing I kind of got in my head now is I'm not willing to let these shoots fail. If we go spend 5 days somewhere and we don't catch one, I can't. I'm not willing to go, never mind, let's go somewhere else, do it again. It's like we have to catch one, and that might mean going back.
So philosophically, what I liked about Gaz, I liked the way that Gaz sort of said that he likes that sometimes the carp get away with it, and that he'd probably give up fishing if that wasn't the case. When I first watched underwater films, I remember going to Brentwood, I think it was, when Ali did the quarter premiere for one of their underwaters. I came out of that cinema thinking, how do we ever catch them? And I almost didn't want to watch more underwater footage because of that, because it made me feel that they're uncatchable and it's all just a massive fluke and I just want to, put my toys away and walk away. Like, how do you have to philosophically sort of deal with what you're seeing underwater? I don't know, is that something you think about when you're...
I don't see it like that at all, Tom. I'll be honest. For me, the game is similar to you described with Gaz. Like, I genuinely think as we push more and more towards efficiency and effectiveness within fishing, we do lose a little bit of something. I guess I would have worried about that, in terms of doing more underwater films. But the reverse is true. Actually we don't. There's so much we don't know and still don't know, and a little bit like explorers, we're pushing into that territory, but we'll never ever get to the bottom of it. And I certainly don't carry that with me when I go fishing. It has in no way affected the way I feel about fishing and the way I feel when I go myself. It might mean that I put the occasional pink one out, but the reality is that it hasn't affected it one iota.
So your mind's eye isn't full of these flashing underwater images when you're sitting behind rods?
Not remotely, because actually what seems to happen when you go fishing without an underwater camera is it's much more straightforward.
It's easier, isn't it? It seems it, because you're just waiting for the bite.
Do you know what I think is I watch the screens when I'm sat in the chair. I then watch the films over, probably, say 3 or 4, I watch each film 3-4 times. I've also dipped into underwater stuff in the past. I'm not a great watcher of other content and stuff, but the one thing I think that defines how successful an angler is, because we see lots of different rigs, and I've only recently, the pennies kind of dropped for me, is just them not going towards the lead. I think I honestly believe now, there are so many good rigs out there. We all know that. There's so many. I genuinely believe, as of today, that if you could control what angle the carp is traveling from when it picks up your rig, that will be more important than any rig tweak you could possibly do. Because time and time again, when we see someone get done, that is always what we see as the defining. It's like, it moved towards your lead and it smacked you out. Well, yeah. And then one comes in, it comes from a different angle, moves away from the lead, wallop, you hook them. Same on a different shoot, different rig, different person, different spot. Like that is, I genuinely believe if we could control that, we would hook so many more fish.
Do you know what I'd love to see and we haven't seen yet? There was this idea floating around, has been for, since probably the 80s, when arguably people were really pioneering rig technology, and certainly in the 90s, is this idea that you can hook on the eject. I've yet to see us hook a carp as it ejects a rig.
What do you use a lead for? What's the lead for? Why do we use a lead?
Well, there's 2 reasons, aren't there?
One is the cast, but what's the...
To hook the fish.
So
we need to try running rigs.
If they don't hit the lead,
we need to try running rigs as well.
Yes, we haven't done them.
No.
I think they would work in the sense of not being able to get rid of it.
Is it the weight of the line as well that, because, depending on what material you use, you only have to pick up into braid or fluoro.
Yeah, of course.
That's a lot of weight. But yeah.
Go back to that bit about you've yet seen a hooking on an ejection. Explain, to perhaps people who are listening, what are you seeing?
It was all theory, Tom. I think there were lots of rigs developed in the absence of good information or good observations.
And they came with good intentions.
Absolutely, and quite, and no doubt that people tried, the palm test, even more sophisticated, building carps' mouths and stuff, and trying to get rigs that work better. But to prevent them from leaving the mouth, and in some cases, hooking them as they spit it out, because obviously the anchor point of the boilie could move, or however it was designed. But I used to read that a lot, and at the moment we can't say that it ever happens because the rig just seems to fall out.
I think it's not. I just think most rig stuff is the most important things with rigs to me are they reset, they don't tangle. Those two are, I think, are very, and they do have some form of element which will effectively enable the hook to turn more towards the downwards position. I think those 3 things are important.
Do you know what?
You still have to hit the lead.
The resetting side is quite interesting, isn't it? Because I totally agree, but it's almost like an acceptance that you've got to be done many times before you hook one. And the rig heads out there, which I'm not one, would be like, no, we can make a better rig. That you don't, yes, it needs to reset, but you might get picked. And actually, let's cut to the chase. Gaz's rig performed really, really well.
And it did.
And it still got spat out. He caught 6 and he got spat out 5 times.
But I don't believe anyone's,
And that was good.
That's right up there.
I think, it's about as good as we've seen. Yeah, maybe
in terms of the sample size,
because we had more options.
Yeah.
We had more. But it was picked up more times. We caught more fish in that field. But that is still still less than 50%. And if I was going to make a little poster image to go on Instagram to say the percentage of the rig that had hooked the fish. This rig has hooked an X amount of times. When I actually went to it, I was like, 54% hooked landing rate. It doesn't sound very good, does it? It doesn't sound like,
no, but
or 46% or something would have been.
It doesn't if you're sitting above the water or above the surface not knowing. But
you must use this rig, it will hook the carp 45% of the time. You'd go, that sounds crap. But it's not.
Yeah.
That's good.
So you two have both watched more underwater footage than most of anyone in perhaps in this country. You've sat through loads of underwater footage, live and edited. Do you both have the same rigs now? Have you both shortened or lengthened your rigs now? What have you both got 8-ounce leads on?
I think horrendously neither of us have done anything about it. but El to be fair, El's seen his rigs on underwater and had good results on them. So, he's already had that certified by the submerged cameras. Whether I'll ever see mine underwater, I don't know. But to be honest, last I fished on Saturday night and I put hinges out, and I'm pretty sure that hinges work quite well, Tom. So,
But have you shortened the booms? Have you lengthened?
I've changed nothing, mate. Not personally changed nothing. No.
But you've learned. Obviously, you've learned.
That was
things.
The problem was that his performed well. So you're asking probably the wrong person.
I'll tell you what I have seen is how it is driven home to me how good the squid gooing that is, that I've always had so much faith in, because it happened with Gaz, it happened with Oscar. We'll talk about that later down the line, but I genuinely think that stuff makes a difference to just pink. I've always been of that opinion, that it isn't just pink, it isn't just the colour. I genuinely think there's something in that liquid itself.
I mean, if we're being scientific about it, we need to put like a standard pink against a goo pink, don't we, on the spot, and see what.
Well, the possibilities are endless,
what we could do, it's there to be done.
Exactly. That's what I mean. There's so much.
And that's just focusing on one colour that we're interested in because it's performed so well. I think there's like a handful of things that we take from every shoot, and they're kind of the same things. But I'm really reassured that I learned something new anyway, and it's so venue specific as well.
On the subject of bright hook baits, I'm not going to say what this is, but on the shoot we did with James Armstrong not so long ago, I saw something multiple times that I never, ever, ever, ever thought I would see happen, and it really concerned me because of how I fish. Like, I'm not going to say what it is. We can wait for that down the line. But I was like, I couldn't believe what I saw, and it really bothered me. And it still now, I say I've never changed anything. I'm like, so that does happen, and that happens, and I never thought that happens. So that again, and that's just me sitting in the chair with Jimmy, that I wasn't fishing, but I witnessed things time and time and time and time and time again. To the point where you go, okay, that is happening. First you're trying to go, maybe it was this that caused that. Maybe it was, and then after a while you think, it's definitely that. And that concerned me. Other people might have it with a rig. They use a similar rig to this person. They watch that rig get spat out. They go, oh shit, I use that rig. I'm worried now. I think different people take different things from the different things that happen at different times.
I don't think anyone's really changed too dramatically actually, because they're coming into these shoots, if they're good anglers, hopefully they mostly are, they're confident in that, and they'll take it away again. I don't want to go ahead. There's a good example, can we talk about future stuff or not?
I don't think we should say too much.
Well, it's a good teaser.
There is one angler that we went out with, super ultimate faith in his rig, gone everywhere with it, caught everything, and he questioned it. Quite quickly, it came under fire, and I bet you he still uses it. But I think that's the point, Tom, that this can exist within carp fishing without affecting the way people feel about it, the way we feel about it. I don't go fishing to scrutinise how my rig's performing outside of when I'm on a shoot. I go fishing for different reasons. However, occasionally if I come away and I'm fucking annoyed that I haven't caught one, then having this having this kind of resource in the background is always useful to
Gaz is undertow thing.
Yeah.
Like from the Gaz shoot, I took that because undertow exists. I do lots of fishing where I want to land all my bait as tight as I can. I know that it exists, The only time I've ever questioned what happens with bait, and I was spotting maggots, I woke up in the morning, there were tufties diving left and off the back of my spot. I was only fishing 50 yards, and I know where I put my bait, and I put about 20 swarms of maggots on a bin lid, and I had all three. And I was watching the tufties diving, and I was like, what are they diving on? It won't be my bait. What are they diving on? And then more they dived, and I thought, that's my bait, isn't it? Like, my bait's drifted. But you kind of get that out of the back of your mind, because in your head you like to think, right, I'm swamming my bait out, it's all going perfectly, it's all landed on the spot. I put all my bait out perfectly, and I would imagine all of my bait landed not on my spot that night. The same thing happened with Gaz. If you stood and watched him and asked, how's your spomming going, Gaz? He'd have been like, it's absolutely perfect, mate. If you didn't have me in the tent to go, none of your bait's landing in front of the camera. But it was the day before. And it wasn't like, every day that changed. The undertow adjusted and changed how the bait fell day to day.
Do you think we'd have seen more if it was in 4 foot? We'd have seen it every time?
Yeah, and I think if he's using whole 18 millers, he'd have had bait on the spot every single time, yeah.
That's one thing from watching the videos that I came away without a solution to.
We did. So. And you think?
Well, yeah. When I did a podcast with Maker, he talked about it, and he thinks it's a particular problem on linear. That's not to say it's not a problem anywhere else, but his sort of standard thing was to go immediately drop his bait into the edge and see which way, even in the margins. Bear in mind they are likely to be much more sheltered, and it would always go one way.
And you can compensate to a degree, but you're blind, aren't you?
No, and I guess he's got a formula. Even if it's something he just unconsciously does. But he was convinced. But he likes his mix, and people like their mix, and that's that. So, he was convinced that the reason that people's they can only get one rod in the game is because of all of their bait is not where they think.
You only catch when you're like the left-hand rod always goes. Yeah. It's always the left-hand rod.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because what we often see is you put bait on a spot. Actually, it's the extreme edges that they feed. It's very, very rare from what I have seen that they go, oh, bait, let's go to the middle of the spot and eat our way outwards. Yeah. They generally always start at the edge. Yeah. So if you're spomming onto your mark where your 2 rods are, but your bait's drifting 6 foot, there's every chance that maybe your left-hand rod is the extreme edge of the bait and they like eating there. Every time you top up, that may be why, because your other rod is actually too far away from the drift. Those things clearly can happen. And I didn't ever really, although I knew they could, you don't want to put your bait out and go, that was perfect, but it's probably landed somewhere completely different. You don't want to do that, do you? You want to put your bait out and go, that was perfect, it will be perfect.
Largely because you've got no idea how to remedy it either, because you don't know how far it's drifting.
The only way you can do it is put a spom out, go out and look at it from a boat. Oh, it's gone there. Okay, I need to go there.
But then it changes every day, like you say. How strong the wind is, how what direction it's from. How heavy your bait is.
Ground bait balls.
How deep it is.
Yeah. Spom ground bait ball. I would genuinely think, if you want to combat that and you want to put a mix of, I would honestly say, mould it into balls, let them go hard and put it out like that. It sounds stupid in a spot, but that would stop it because they will fall.
I bet you don't do that though.
No.
And I'm not
Who's going to do it? No. How many times would you have to do that before you went, okay, I've got to do something about this,
Because we all caught carp before, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
We all caught carp before, and we will continue to catch carp.
Yeah.
The carp themselves, we think of linear as this cauldron of pressure where those carp have seen everything and they're fired at 24/7, 365, and to a degree they are.
They are, yeah.
They didn't seem to me to act as pressured or more pressured than I'd seen carp on, say, a lower stock venue underwater. Does that make sense? I didn't see them look particularly pressured.
I think not hunger, but competition for food is.
But these were healthy fish.
Oh yeah,
big healthy fish.
So do we over egg the pressure element?
No, we've seen it happen.
Yeah, small egg, low stock, where there's. I think pressure is one thing.
Yeah.
Competition is if you don't eat that, someone else will. You'll eat it. If you don't eat that, it'll be there next time you come back. Then I think when you take on those lakes, I would imagine that you have so many carp, a certain amount of bait. I think they just know maybe to eat when they...
But that could only be conditioning though, Al, because what we actually saw was very few carp really feeding. Ultimately we never had 10 fish in the swim.
But for carp that get fished for every single day, they weren't turning up. There was one carp did though, do you remember? One common that we eventually hooked and lost. That fish was a a nightmare to catch.
But it wasn't fanning its fins over the fluorocarbon.
But it was different to the rest.
But it was just
different to the
feeding.
rest.
It was feeding in a different way.
I looked at that and thought, you know what you're doing. It might be coincidence, but it felt like watching him, that he was aware maybe that there was other fish turn up and eat. He didn't seem like he was going to be very easy to catch, he wasn't.
No, I think Hardwick is an interesting one because there's lots of volume of water. It feels like they can be more comfortable there. These were like good condition, full, occasional like tatty one, but not many. And actually quite a lot of them are young fish. So actually where we were more recently, you said at Stanwick, to me that was that was much more dramatic example of pressure.
Yes, they were carp, but you thought, oh my God, these fish are like, there were times I was thinking, I don't know how we're going to catch one of these. I actually don't know now. You
were fishing in a marginal spot, unless I'm wrong, at Elson's and Stanwick. Do you feel there's a different carp in the margins as opposed to carp out in open water?
Yeah, I think
in the way they behave.
The noise we make as well, mate. Like it's so hard to.
Well, the generator was running. I noticed that for the cameras.
I don't think that bothers them as much as the stampeding rhinos that we become at times. You can't help but you got 5 of us in a tent, 2 rod lengths down the margin. It's 5 times the amount of footsteps. It's 5 times the amount of things that get accidentally dropped. It's 5 times the amount of talking. Everything's amplified by the amount, by how many times, based on how many people are there. When you fish normally, mate, you put your rods out, you sit on your bed. You don't really move from your bed, particularly in that kind of swim. You stay put. It's not the case. Jimmy wants to do his rod. Okay, I need to do this. You've got to do that. That makes a big difference. It has to. If you were fishing on your own, we turned up and you were swimming, and we're just going to do this and pretend we're filming you. 30 seconds later, you'd be like, get out of my swim.
Yeah.
So, it has to make a difference. But Hardwick, they're used to it at Hardwick. They get so much. How leads and spoms are going in.
All the time.
It's like a theme tune. Boom, boom, boom. Like it is.
Well, you got one thing, at one part, and I don't think this gives away too much for those who haven't seen it, you get a bite, Gaz gets a bite in his hand.
In his hand, yeah. Mental.
Watching that back.
It makes me smile so
it's
much.
Brilliant.
Like, I just giggle.
I just love Gaz's, I love that interplay between you and then Gaz's react as he's still shocked by it, even though he sort of must know it's coming. Yeah.
I was like, you might catch one in a minute. Yeah, you've caught one. He's like, what, really?
There were a couple of times, and I have to say that I noticed this, there was a couple of times where you almost had to nudge Gaz out of the tent to go on, go and get it. Because
he liked to keep watching.
Yeah. Like it didn't how far were you from tent to rod? Not too far.
You could almost touch it.
Basically where you'd be picking up 15
Yeah, where
foot,
Dave is probably.
I suppose.
The butt of the rod.
Yeah. Out the door and there. Yeah, it wasn't far at all. It was like...
I think one of those occasions, though, and I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning it, is that one where there's that carp that you wanted him to catch and he didn't want to catch.
Yes.
The real scruffy one. And you that's the one where you have to push him out the door. He's like, I can't believe I've caught that one.
He sort of was like...
and the pike.
He's like, is this really happened? Yeah. And the pike.
Yeah.
We should have put that pike back the other side of the spit. It came off, didn't it? That's why.
Yeah, he did come off. He was an idiot, that pike.
Yeah.
They do that, though. They just... Pike, we've seen pike do it, perch do it. Sometimes they just sit there for...
Well, I think if you're a predator, like you're literally, you might not eat that day.
Well, sometimes you don't do anything either. You're like, there's roach all around you. What are you doing? Like you spent all that time sitting there.
Yeah.
They've turned up now. There's 50 roach, and then the roach ends up swimming off, and the pike's still there. You're just like, mate, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That was your chance. Surely that was your chance.
And actually, I do love that window onto the underwater world, and you don't always get it. Sometimes it's like a postcard, beautiful colours, like great vista. Sometimes it looks like a mug of tea, almost like nothing going on. Hardwick was a bit meh because it was just deep water behind.
Yeah,
we did one deep in the Colne Valley this summer, and it was just a really cool spot. Another one of these ones.
It was epic.
By necessity, it sort of ended up where it ended up. It's a really weedy lake. We were determined to do something on silt, and we did it. But it was just such a cool spot. It was an active spot. There was stuff going on all the time.
Yeah.
I like to see small
Best spot
fish.
we've ever filmed.
Yeah,
Best
just
spot
beautiful. Walls of weed.
Felt like a fish tank.
Fizzing. The spot would fizz the whole time. Microscopic bubbles, like teeming with them the whole time for no reason.
And more colours or more variety
greens.
of colours?
It looked like an aquascape.
That's
but
it, yeah.
maybe not quite as nice because it was essentially.
Yeah, but it did have occasional carp just turning
that
up.
vibe.
Yeah.
Do you think that not fishing at night is a real plus on these things?
No.
Or does it make a difference? Or how much of a factor is the fact that you reel in when it gets too dark to film?
Well, we don't always know.
This is you know what? For the people listening, this is because we go over this all the time. What was drilled into me when we worked at Corda was you must not fish at night. You must not fish with other rods because what if you catch the fish that you might catch the next day off the spot, which is a very valid point. Let's say you were going to catch the lake's biggest carp in the morning at 10 o'clock if you'd left things as it was, but you put 3 rods out at night, you get a bite, you still catch that carp because he's in the area and he's catchable, but you catch him at night instead.
Yeah, not as good for film and pictures.
We've kind of taken that route. What I lean more towards now, and particularly having spoken to people recently when we've said we're going to make this change, a lot of them are like, well, I want to see him reacting to stuff. We want that as well. Some of our shoots, we sit there and you look at an open moor and you think they're going mad out there. And this spot's been dead all day.
And anglers always are quick to say, aren't they?
And they're like, and I'm like, no. Just in case you catch a carp that, as time has gone on and as we've now taken this route that we've taken, maybe it does make more sense to go, I tell you what, fish for them. Because you're going to be fishing in a different way. The people watching are going to hopefully see a few bonus fish caught throughout the film, which is always good. It gets you out the tent, because the last thing you want of an underwater film is to feel like you've stared at someone in a tent the whole time. We catch bonus carp. People see things happening. They might see fishing in the weed with chod rigs. We bring that element into a film. We can't really do that at a drop of a hat whilst we're filming on a normal lake, because to position cameras in those sort of areas is very difficult. So it will add another dimension to our films, I think, and I'm opening up more towards the idea of going, okay, this is the swim we're in. Those two, the 2 underwater spots will always be our focus, but the question I have for people is, would you like, for people that watch these films, would you like to see that kind of thing happening, or should we just stick to the underwater? Because I think probably most people would actually go, well, yeah, it would be quite nice to see them do something a bit different. But fishing at night, it's always the fear. You think, please don't catch. We fish at night, you don't want to catch one at night. You want to catch them at first light. And having the rod in at first light makes a big difference, because you so often turn the camera on, there's carp there. And so often, if you have to put the rod out, you then spook them away.
I think those things were all kind of crystallised during the Ian Russell shoot, which is obviously available to watch, isn't it? It's been on the site for a little while at Junction 12. Not only did we go fishing elsewhere on the lake, but he also caught first thing in the morning by leaving the... Did he leave the rods out?
We got to the last... It was really hot when we were there. It ruined our trip, really, because we would have caught them throughout the days. I'd been going there baiting for a week or so, and I was seeing him in the day, and it was 31 degrees, and it just ruined the shoot in a way. We had such small windows in the morning when we were putting the rods out. By 9 o'clock, it was 30 degrees. It was 10 o'clock, 30 degrees, so the spots would just die. They'd be out in the wind. And we were supposed to be off on the Thursday evening. I said to Del, runs Junction 12, can we stay till the morning? He's like, yeah, you've got to be off at 8. We was like, 8? It takes an hour and a half at least, really, just to pack down. So we've got to be off, we've got to be doing that at 6:30. You're like, is it worth it for an hour? But we thought every morning they have been on us. And we left the rods out, he caught two within the first 30 minutes of light. And you think, if we'd have done that every day, we might have caught 8 that film. But the footage ain't that good, really. It's a bit grainy. Do you know what I mean? Depends what do you want to see? What is important to someone watching? Is it important that you have underwater footage to see and witness things, but you walk away with knowledge that you gain, but you don't necessarily see perfectly well? Because you can gain a lot from watching fish in the half light. It's hard to strike that balance. Because if we come away with 3 bites and they were all in shots that are fizzing with grain, you'd be like, I really wish we'd got a nice shot. But that's us as the filmmakers who want to have that shot.
The flip side of it is you've seen it all get set up, and largely carp do the same sort of thing when they get hooked. Yeah. So you're not missing a lot. You're just seeing the proof that what you saw him do the night before and the way his bait was, etc., worked, and how it worked.
You talk about 31 degrees by 9 a.m. and that being tough conditions to shoot in. Are we going to see some real depths of the winter? I mean, does that kill battery life? Does it add other difficulties to it?
We've done it. We did do it.
We made 5. Was it 5? 4 films? I think we made 3 or 4 films with Stokesy. And this again is like so we did 3 different shoots with Thom. I can't remember how many films. 4 films, I think it is. On there, we've done this last year. It's already on the
2 on Orchid, 2 on the Gold Lake.
I think it was 1 on the Gold Lake, but we made 2 films. We have 2 trips to Orchid, I think.
Yeah, that was February time, was it?
We'd love to go. We'd love to get that, go back and do that.
We did early December, or
It was the last week of November into December.
Very late
Yeah,
November. We did that.
Freezing as well.
We did the first week after Christmas.
Yeah.
The lake had been frozen for 15 days. I think it's stupid, isn't it? When it's frozen for ages. And then we did one in February. So we did basically start of December, start of January, start of February. And from memory, other than our bodies, which do get very cold.
I like those winter shoots, mate.
I came down and saw you, I think, didn't I? And you were in the Alamo, weren't you? For one of them?
Yeah, that was the last shoot.
Cold, mate. They are cold. I think it's worse when you sit in the chair. When you're on them, you think, oh, this is actually, I feel like I've got it cushed here, I'm sat in the chair, but actually you're literally not doing anything.
Do you remember when you couldn't get the rods out because of the mist? Like we literally, that little tiny window cost us.
That's what would happen as well. Like they're the things, mate. Sometimes I look at it and I think, like, we've made this so hard for ourselves in the attempt to get the perfect underwater shot of a carp being hooked.
And actually, Orchid was, potentially one of the best we've seen for big carp in clear water.
Yeah, and they were clearing us out.
Because I think that's the other thing that we aim for, we're aiming for is, I don't think we've got anywhere near what we're capable of getting in terms of pure, crystal clear quality of, seeing every like detail of a carp as it feeds.
Junction 12 was unbelievable. Like I could see a rubbing spot 20 yards down the margin when I put that camera in, right? No carp were there. So within 24 hours we had to move the camera. By the time we put the camera back there, the carp had been in and fed. And when honestly, like people that have seen the films will know, but when I say that water was clear, it was a joke. As clear as you can probably ever expect to have anywhere. Once they come in and feed, when you put the camera back on the spot, I'm looking at it like, it don't look right. And when you think, well, what's happened is they've just been in and fed. They're pretty destructive carp. Then they can turn something. I would say,
especially with clay. That
the
really,
seal
really
spot we did is probably the best one for being tap clear.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, would you?
They would murk the spot up to the point where you can't see anything. But 30 seconds later, it would be tap clear again. It just settled perfectly.
This was like heavy, decayed material.
Yeah,
like black, and it's tap again.
Yeah. Whereas obviously anything with very fine particles like clay.
Clay's the worst. Yeah.
And I think there is at Junction, isn't there?
There is. Yeah, the areas are clay. And even if they've been and gone, mate, it's still there 3 hours later. So if it's really clear, you're probably going to blank because there's no carp anywhere nearby. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard. The dream is to find somewhere tap clear with a sand bottom. That's the dream.
Which we have actually already filmed at. Yeah. A place like that.
Yes.
But where we call it 1 pound ghosting.
Would you, if people are listening, would you welcome suggestions?
Well, that was someone got in touch, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, especially at this stage, like I'm so into talking to him. It's really nice to have a bit of, because we talk to ourselves all the time, but there's a lot more to the world than just.
We don't know loads of lakes, and we want to cast the net wider. Different parts of the country, different parts of the world. All good, isn't it?
And if you're there's comment sections nowadays, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on our website, there's comment sections. And whenever we put a film up, if you've got something to say it. Because there's no point, if you want to say something, say the things you want to say, suggest the things you want to suggest. And it's, even if it's bad stuff, I'd rather hear it than you think it and not say anything. Because we can't do anything about can't do anything about it otherwise.
On that theme, you ever fallen out on on these sessions?
Yeah,
properly.
Yeah, we don't ever
short-lived.
Not
like we had
not irrevocably.
No. We had one flare up on the shoot with Henry, but it's just stress and tiredness.
Yeah, and you both care.
I am so grouchy when I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm quite bad I'm quite
he stresses and I get tired,
and I will say things to people that people don't and. Rich bites, or not bites, but
I do.
Some people, if I say something to them, they might just go, okay, Rich is not.
As I've got older, I've got more tetchy.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. But it's tired. It's only due to tiredness. I'm not like that normally.
And I'll be overly. I can be a bit. There's probably better ways I could say things to people that then maybe they wouldn't trigger.
But it's because of stress, and it's because things need to happen very quickly in the moment, and often stuff goes wrong.
Yeah, we don't have when it's going well. It's normally when it's going wrong.
We could probably still manage that out.
But no, we don't. No,
not really. No, not really. But that's not to say if it happens, then it will be on camera, definitely.
One thing that
someone said that in the film.
Yeah, no, I think that's where it came from.
Yeah. Some bloke went, I love the bit with you and the cameraman.
Yeah.
One thing on camera, can we have a moment for Gaz's wardrobe? He has about 5 different jackets throughout the
As long as they're North Face, he does. Yeah.
Well, there's Patagonia, North
The best thing
Face.
is Gaz's hair, because it doesn't change, and
his beard.
You don't see him do his hair, do you?
It's very
He's
stylish.
secretive, isn't he?
This is what I mean. He definitely does his hair.
No, I don't know if he does, mate.
It's
It's pretty like locked in, but his beard.
Gaz, do you or not? I think you do. I think because it looks good every day, and I'm like,
I've seen Luke do it with water. Luke
pours a bucket of water over it.
But Gaz's beard is like
It's
a
manicured.
thing of
Yeah.
like.
It's good beard.
Do you regret your top knot looking back at the footage?
Absolutely not, Dave. You're gutted I got rid of that.
Why hasn't he still got it though? That's
Well,
No, I think it looked good there, and I think in Oscar's film it looks really good.
he's gone for another midlife crisis thing at the minute though.
I don't know why I got rid of it in the end.
He's got an earring.
I just shaved it off. Yeah, I got a new earring.
oh, yes.
By new, you mean you've got an earring because you didn't have one before.
You went to Claire's Accessories.
I went to Claire's Accessories in Gem. I've always
It's expensive there.
So
mate.
I've always wanted to get my ears pierced, but
I thought you would have done years ago.
I'm scared, mate. I'm really scared. Don't know why. I've got loads of tattoos. Doesn't bother me. I'm petrified of having my ears done. Jem went, I want to be spontaneous this morning, and I was thinking, because the kids was away. I was like, where's this going? And she was like, I want to get my ears pierced. I was like, oh. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll do that with you instead. So she went to get her ears pierced. She's like, it doesn't hurt. And then as she's in the chair, I was like, are you not scared? And she's like, now you're making me feel scared. So I had it done. She said, I can't get 2 because 2 is for girls. So I got 1, but I'm going to go and get the other one done soon as well.
You must have had a bit of stick at Burfield for that.
No, I haven't been back to Burfield since.
That's because,
my mate from school messaged me saying, I've got a question for you. I was like, I know what it is. And he said, is that a little earring you've got?
Yeah, I've messaged you as well saying, what's that on your ear? It looks like a beetle, a small beetle.
Dave likes it.
If you don't quite catch it could be something.
Didn't it just say? So I was.
It's tiny, which is good.
Yeah, I touched it.
Yeah.
I was outside my front door at night. There was moths everywhere. Sorry, outside this door here. And I touched my ear, and I shit myself because I thought I had thought I had a bug or something in my ear.
Gaz's earring.
Well, yeah.
That's a different level.
Stretchy one.
Yeah.
Flesh hoop, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
that what
Is
they
that
call
what
it?
they call
Or a
it?
flesh tunnel? I don't know. We're not really the ones.
That sounds all kinds of wrong.
I'm going to say it's not called a flesh tunnel. I'm going to say it's not a flesh tunnel.
I'm going to say
the
Tom
first
probably
blooper.
knows, mate. Tom probably knows.
When we see him, so where'd you get your flesh tunnel done? You see him, he's like, what?
No, Gaz is always well turned out.
Yeah.
Including, and I'm very pleased about the appearance of that OG Realtree
The tail jacket.
tail jacket on the last
Was that
day.
OG or was that repot?
No. That's from the time, mate.
real
Yeah,
Was it?
that's from the
Okay.
time.
Well, it's in good. Most of them have faded into oblivion, haven't they?
No, I think Gaz's has been in the wardrobe until it made a comeback with 3 Fortis. So he's out the closet now.
And his Daiwa SS reels as well. And
Oh,
you know, it was a very, you know.
Gaz can do it and look at the same time, which is always
And his casting was, you know, I began this by asking you about the casting, but the casting was pinpoint.
Good. It was
good at casting, and he can do it at range as well. I remember Daryl saying that when Daryl went on Rockford, being impressed with how Gaz gets out.
Yeah.
Even at like, Gaz can go for a little guy. I think he can fish like 200 yards,
Yeah, I
almost,
think he
close
can.
to which is like ridiculous.
Yeah, Gaz ain't that will do kind of person.
No,
so
not at
he'll
all.
Be able, whatever range he can fish at, he'll be able to fish well at. You know?
For you to say you're too anal to somebody, I think is a moment.
I know.
Which he did say on camera.
Talking about getting stick for things, earrings aside, has anyone reacted negatively to the way that Cypography's
absolutely, and why you
I
you
think-
expect that because it's a dramatic change, and people have been on this journey with us, like and that they must feel as much a part of it as we do. So yeah, I think it was a shock.
I don't want to say people have reacted. People have reacted negatively. Yes, big part of me thinks that people have reacted negatively wrongly, because they hadn't given us the chance to even. So I understand that. Obviously, I read every single comment and replied to every single comment because I wanted to just. If we're going to say we're going to do something, I want to face it, and I want to know what people think. Of course, there were elements of some of the comments I read where I thought, well, it's all well and good saying that, but you haven't watched anything yet. And a big part of me thinks if we'd have just released this stuff or made this transition without actually telling anyone and saying this is changing, they would probably not really have noticed, and maybe. But I know what people are like. I can be the same. If you say to someone, "This is changing," you're almost forcing them to have an opinion. A natural reaction for a lot of people is, "Oh, I don't like change. I don't want it to change." Fine, and I do get that entirely. But in terms of the negative stuff, like if you watch it or you genuinely just hate anything to do with underwater films, fine, and you want to say, this is not for me. I get that, but I think we are not that we're owed the opportunity for people to watch the stuff and then make a decision. I think, what if you think in your head this is going to be really bad, and then 2 months down the line or whatever, you're of that opinion, fine, because you've given us the chance. But I hope people give us that chance, watch the stuff and openly watch it and go, did I enjoy that or not? There will be people, of course, that just not the kind of stuff they want to watch. But a lot of the people I spoke to, it kind of fell into 3 categories really. It was members who just thought, oh, this is really bad. It's not what I want to watch. This is the kind of stuff I want to watch. But the reality of it is, the stuff that they wanted to watch, we only do that sporadically anyway, and they'll still get probably the same amount of that. So it shouldn't matter too much, I don't think, to them. Then you had people that were old members that would go, loads of change. I'm interested in what's going on here. There were people that weren't members, never had been, that were, again, interested. There was like different tiers of people. But pretty much all the negative stuff came from existing members. And it was quite worrying, because all the negative, I was like,
they're often the loudest voices, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's like, and obviously the people I least want to get the negative stuff from is the existing members. If I could choose, it would be all the people that have never watched Cypography before going, shit idea, and then the ones who are current members go, great idea, that's how you'd want it. But quite in the early sort of hours of reading comment stuff, I was a bit like, oh, Jesus. As it went on, I got to the thing and I thought, I've gauged what's happening here, and I think it's just a natural thing from people to go, oh no, change must be bad. Change isn't always bad. And in the end, the comments, I would say, were overwhelmingly good. I actually text Rich saying, because you didn't want to get to, Rich didn't want to read it.
Comments.
Yeah. Okay. But I was like, look, it's okay, there's some good, there's some bad.
You come up from your stone there if you want.
Fine, And then one night I read like 10 or 12 in a row, and I messaged him, I was like, I've just read 12 comments, they're all really good. And then the 13th or 14th comment I found, it just said, terrible idea, commercial suicide. And so I sent him the screenshot. I was like,
yeah,
not everyone's still of the same opinion. But mate, we've got to do what we've got to do. It's the only way to get the best out of us.
And it's still a gamble, though, isn't it? You're not saying you've stumbled upon the winning formula.
No.
You're still feeling your way through it, I guess. And technology improves, your ideas for what you can do.
But what it's not a gamble with for me is, it's not a gamble in the sense of, am I doing what I want to be doing at work? Because essentially, it's work.
You need that.
Am I investing? Yeah, I'm a person that I like to invest as much of myself into the things I do. Can't do that if I don't want to do it. So,
and that comes down to quality of product, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you can't invest, and we had a period like when you were fishing a lot, and like arguably we produced a run of films where you're reliant entirely on a fish picking up the hook bait and being able to capture that to make the film even work. And I think it was around that time Elle mentioned it to me, and I was a bit more like, do you know what? You can engage with an underwater film. Everybody can engage on some level with an underwater film because they do, and we see that. But are we doing a lot of running around trying to make films that we've made for a long time and have been quite popular? We could continue to do that, but everyone does them.
Yeah.
Why would we want to do something that everyone is doing when we could do something that lots of people love and that we can pour more passion into and create a better product because of that? You know, it seemed like a no-brainer in the end after El had sort of like explained his thoughts.
I think you just see things like if my attention wanes, everything will suffer, because it's like I'm the one part that probably is involved with every single element, and if I don't have that, how is everyone else supposed to be like? Because there's some people in Cypography, they don't talk to each other every day. You know, it's probably me that talks to everyone every day. And if I'm not interested, you will sense that in me, because you sense it when I'm excited about something. Anyone who's around me will sense that. When I'm not, you'll sense that as well. And it's a domino effect, isn't it? You know, and I would much rather us be doing what we collectively feel is good.
And we're actually out this week. You know, we're not shooting underwater.
It's not underwater.
But it's, without using like the sort of journalistic stuff, like editorially, it's justified because it's a great opportunity to do something different. And I think if great opportunities to do something different come along, we'll always take them within reason. But they just have to fit in around the rest of the.
And even this, it's like what we're doing. It's like, if we'd planned, what's happened is we've got this sort of thing. It's a bit of an ongoing thing. What we're doing next week, and it will happen after. But where we've had so much going on over the last 6 months, what we're actually doing next week could have been this week. Yeah. And again in October, could have been better organised. That really falls on me, but I've had enough to organise. You know, we've been doing a lot, so you straight away think, right, okay, next year we can do that same kind of thing. We can maybe carry that on. We can make it better. Having less things to think about, you make those things you're doing better, and better is the key word in all of this. We want to be better. We want it to be better for us, more enjoyable for us. We want it to be better for the people that watch.
Is it harder and harder to combat that viewer fatigue? We are surrounded by carp fishing content if you want it, free or otherwise. Do you have to work harder, think differently? Does that play on your mind?
Yeah, absolutely plays on my mind, yeah. And I know it does Elle as well. It had played on my mind for a long time. Yeah, because like, that's what I do. I'm around it, and that's, you know, it's ultimately a lot of stuff we put out in the last year is stuff that's come through my camera, I come across my desk. So it's personal. And if it, for a moment it feels like that's not as good as we could do, then you need to change, don't you? So yeah, I take it really personally. I have done.
But is there ever a sense that no matter how hard you try, there's a indifferent audience?
No, I'm constantly surprised, mate. Yes, I fear that, and fear comes into it for me a lot. I fear that, but what I see when I look at other people's comments and I look at stuff that comes back to us is actually, no, people are really enthusiastic about well-produced films. Still, I don't know, you could go out there and look at stuff Corda do, stuff that Carl does, stuff that we get back to us. If they're films, if the product is good and makes you feel good or you learn from it, then no, the fatigue arises when they're in a sea of grey. It's all the same. You know, everyone's trying to get the same films out on limited time or whatever it is. Spend time on getting the right product out there, and the fatigue doesn't exist, I don't think.
And some people, I speak to, they're my favourite people to speak to because they've been with us since the start. And they're quite often nowadays, they're quite often people that are willing to say something, especially in this kind of era. They've watched our films for 6 years, you know, and we're at a point with them where we think, we need to change these. They don't think that, or maybe they, you know, maybe. So there's a lot of content. I think maybe what we do, I think maybe we're different in some ways, but I think because it's a bit more of a. I guess you'll get people that warm to you. They know what they're getting a bit. You've got not a close-knit group of people, but, you know, you have a membership base. And I think once they settle in, they maybe stay for longer. But we can't really, it's hard to gauge that. You don't ever really know. We've never paid massive attention to viewing figures and stuff like that. I am now. Now I've got the new website. Yeah, because I just want to know. And because I feel like we used to do such a varied style of content. I used to think, well, what do we even do? Let's make a video of this person. If that's really good, what are we going to do? Do more like that? We never really shot that kind of content where you could just go, that was good, we'll do it again with them. And it was hard to, I always thought it would be hard to really use figures to lead our pathway through what we're doing in films. We'll just do what we think was good. But now we're doing kind of the same thing-ish more often. I start to look at watch through rate and how many views and on what day, and because that's going to be relevant to the next thing we do. But yeah, the members that talk to us are really valuable, and they're a good gauge for whether you're doing right or wrong, because our perception, I don't think, is always right. Carl said, I actually listened to Carl's podcast the other day, and he said what he thought would be his best film was one of his
Carl
worst.
Smith,
yeah,
Carl and Alex.
Yeah, and he was like, that was one of our worst films, one of his worst films, and he thought it'd be his best. So at the end of the day, what we think, in some ways, is the most important, because what we think is going to guide our content and see where it goes. But what the viewer thinks is way more important than what we think. If every one of our members loves something that we thought was not that good, their opinion, I guess, matters more, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think this fatigue element, Tom, that you mentioned as well, it's almost why that's why we're moving away from the bits where the most overlap exists. I could understand that there would be fatigue within that, especially when you don't have the time to revisit it or to can it and come back another day. So actually, it made perfect sense to do something unique.
And in terms of new content, this is back. The podcast is back. I was an avid. I loved your podcast, fleeting as it was. I don't know how many episodes there were.
Someone said the other day, best thing you've ever done. I hate it when they say. I think, mate, are you fucking having a laugh? With all the things we've done, our podcast was the best. No, thank you to whoever it was said it. Like in some ways,
I've seen it a few times.
I'm like, oh, really? Like that's almost an insult in some ways. You know, it's great to hear, but you think. It's like the easiest. We just sat around a table.
We did a lot of topical stuff, didn't we? We did a lot of maybe we'll get you to do some stuff for that time in the future. But
so what's the plan? Are listeners gonna or viewers gonna see a regular podcast from you? What's happening? Is that the plan?
I don't think we ever meant to get rid of it.
No, we didn't. No, that's the thing. That's the thing. With the way we used to work, it was so hickledy-pickledy. It was this. Things just everything felt like a stress. You'd have a good idea, you do it one week, forget it the next. Now we've got a bit more of a routine. You know, we've got less eggs to juggle, whatever the saying is. I don't know.
Your metaphors are just on a different.
Are you juggling a basket?
Hickledy-pickledy and juggling eggs and stuff.
So yes, we will have
with Jimmy Armstrong.
We will have a regular podcast because. You know, I think it's nice to talk, but I like that retrospective look back at the. I like doing podcasts.
We only brought it back so we could get you.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
We'll try and do one every single month. And see where they go.